The concept of death in a biblical context is both profound and multifaceted, deeply rooted in the narratives and teachings of the Bible. Death, as described in the Bible, is not merely the cessation of life, but a transition from the physical world to an eternal existence, either in the presence or absence of God. It signifies a separation of the soul from the body, ushering the soul into eternal judgment. This understanding is crucial when discussing the rare instances of individuals who reportedly never died, as it underscores the extraordinary nature of their experiences. In the context of the three men in the Bible that never died, the concept of death, or rather the absence of it, holds significant theological weight. It challenges the natural order established in the Genesis narrative, where death is introduced as a consequence of sin. The exceptions to this rule, Enoch, Elijah, and Jesus, prompt believers and scholars to explore the deeper meanings behind these divine anomalies. For instance, Enoch's translation to heaven is seen as a reward for his righteousness, while Elijah's ascent in a whirlwind is viewed as a demonstration of God's power and a foreshadowing of Christ's ascension. In real-world applications, this concept invites believers to ponder the implications of eternal life promised in Christian doctrine. It offers hope and assurance of life beyond death, encouraging moral and spiritual vigilance. Furthermore, it resonates with theological discussions about the nature of Christ's resurrection and its promise to humanity, acting as a beacon of faith in the believer's journey toward eternal life. Support for this idea can be found in various theological interpretations and doctrines that emphasize life after death and the miraculous nature of divine intervention. However, challenges arise from scientific perspectives that demand empirical evidence, as well as differing theological views that question the literal interpretation of these accounts. Some scholars argue for symbolic interpretations, viewing these narratives as metaphors for spiritual transformation rather than physical occurrences. This exploration of death and its exceptions ties into broader themes of divine grace, judgment, and the hope of resurrection, intricately weaving into the overarching narrative of redemption and salvation found in the Bible. By understanding these concepts, one gains deeper insight into the character of God as depicted in biblical texts, and the extraordinary journey of faith that defines the believer's relationship with the divine. In the Bible, three men are famously noted for having never died: Enoch, Elijah, and according to some interpretations, Melchizedek. This notion of never experiencing death is both fascinating and spiritually significant, as it represents a unique aspect of divine intervention and eternal life within biblical narratives. In the context of the three men in the Bible that never died, this idea underlines themes of sanctity, divine favor, and the mysteries of life and death. The significance of these figures in relation to the main topic lies in their exceptional relationship with God, which transcended the natural law of mortality. Enoch, for instance, is described in Genesis 5:24 as having walked with God, and then he was no more because God took him away. Elijah, on the other hand, as described in 2 Kings 2:11, was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. These accounts have been pivotal in shaping theological discussions on the possibilities of eternal life and divine intervention. In the real world, these stories have inspired countless people in their faith, providing hope and a vision of life beyond death. They offer a spiritual narrative that suggests a reward for unwavering righteousness and a life committed to divine principles. However, interpretations can vary significantly. For instance, not all scholars agree on Melchizedek's status. As some tradition holds, he simply had no recorded genealogy, rather than having never died. Similarly, some modern readers might view these stories metaphorically rather than literally, arguing that they symbolize spiritual truths rather than historical facts. This divergence in interpretation generates debate among theologians and laypeople alike. Controversies surrounding these accounts often revolve around the implications of such divine interventions. If these men were truly taken by God without dying, what does this mean for the rest of humanity's experience with mortality? Does it imply predestination, and how does it reconcile with concepts of free will? Linking back to the broader topic, these accounts of men who did not die invite us to explore broader themes within biblical teachings, such as the nature of divine justice, the criteria for divine favor, and the concept of eternal life. These narratives push believers to consider the broader spiritual journey and the ultimate promise of immortality in religious doctrines. Thus, these stories are not just isolated incidents, but integral to understanding the biblical perspective on life, death, and the possibility of transcending both through divine grace. The story of Enoch, as introduced in the Bible, is a captivating narrative that features the enigmatic figure who, rather than experiencing death, was taken by God. This account appears in Genesis 5:21-24, where it is stated that Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. This phrase, walked with God, suggests a life of profound faith and closeness to the divine, signifying Enoch's unique relationship with God, which may have led to his mysterious departure from earthly life. The significance of Enoch's story in the context of biblical figures who never died underscores the notion of divine favor and the possibility of an earthly life so attuned to God that it transcends mortal end. Enoch's narrative is pivotal because it sets a precedent for understanding the relationship between devoutness and divine intervention. It presents a model for believers who aspire to live a life that aligns closely with spiritual principles. The story of Enoch challenges the common human experience of death, suggesting a spiritual or eschatological hope for an alternative ending through divine grace. In contemporary contexts, Enoch's story can be seen as inspiring for those seeking a deeper spiritual communion with God. It serves as a model for individuals aiming to cultivate a life characterized by faithfulness and righteousness. Moreover, Enoch's example is often invoked in discussions of eschatology and the afterlife, offering a narrative that sparks contemplation about mortality and the destiny of the faithful. However, Enoch's disappearance also invites challenges and controversies, primarily related to its interpretation. Skeptics may view the story as metaphorical rather than literal, raising questions about its historical authenticity and the feasibility of such an event. Others see it as a reflection of ancient storytelling aimed at conveying spiritual truths rather than factual history. These differing interpretations can complicate discussions about its exact meaning and implications. Enoch's story connects to the broader theme of the three men in the Bible who never died by illustrating the diverse ways divine intervention can manifest. Along with Elijah, who was taken to heaven in a whirlwind, and possibly Moses, whose death is shrouded in mystery, Enoch's narrative reinforces themes of divine selection and the transformative possibilities inherent in a life of faith. Each story contributes to a composite picture of the extraordinary outcomes possible through unwavering devotion and divine will, enriching the tapestry of biblical narratives that explore the intersection of human life and the divine. The concept of the three men in the Bible that never died refers to the biblical figures Enoch, Elijah, and a figure from the New Testament traditionally believed to be the Apostle John, who were taken into heaven without experiencing physical death. Enoch, mentioned in Genesis, walked faithfully with God, and he was taken directly to heaven. Elijah, a prophet, was taken up in a whirlwind by a chariot of fire, as described in 2 Kings. Meanwhile, in the Gospel of John, there is a passage suggesting the possibility that John might not die, though this is more interpretive and less explicitly stated compared to the other two. The significance of this point lies in its illustration of divine intervention and favor. These stories provide powerful examples of the belief that God can transcend natural laws and elevate the righteous to an eternal existence without death. This serves as an encouragement for faithfulness and righteousness among believers, symbolizing a direct pathway to God's favor. In the real world, these accounts inspire hope and curiosity about the nature of life, death, and the afterlife. They challenge human understanding of mortality, suggesting that death is not a definitive end, but can be bypassed through divine will. Another real-world application is their use in theological discussions about eschatology, the study of end times, where they are cited as examples of bodily transformation or ascension into heaven, drawing parallels with concepts like the rapture. There are many who find these stories deeply moving, lending credibility to the belief in miraculous possibilities and divine justice. They are often cited in sermons and spiritual teachings as examples of the ultimate reward for a life lived in profound connection with God. However, these narratives also invite skepticism and alternative viewpoints. Critics often view them as allegorical or symbolic rather than literal events. Some argue they are rooted in mythological traditions rather than historical fact. Furthermore, debates exist about the interpretation of scriptures concerning these events, particularly regarding John's destiny. These accounts of divine translation influence wider theological perspectives on resurrection, eternal life, and divine judgment. They connect to other biblical themes such as faith, obedience, and the hope of eternal life, reinforcing the overall message of redemption and divine grace present throughout the Bible. This discussion enriches the broader understanding of how biblical narratives continue to shape religious beliefs and spiritual aspirations today.